here, and I wanted to address kind of something that I talked a little bit about on Friday during my blog stream here. I was trying to digest this to kind of understand exactly what this implicated when it came down to the actual changes for Agatha Harkness. And what I want you guys to understand is this is a big deal. This isn't a simple, one-off, like, oh, it wasn't working correctly, and they're just going to fix one line of text. This team has been utilized by a lot of players in a lot of different game modes successfully for a long time. And the most superficial thing that happened here is something that they balanced around a broken team. So they had the opportunity to work with this team in several different iterations. But when they found, after the saga was completed, that Gamma and Underworld, is my guess, this is probably the Underworld team specifically, weren't performing as well against this team on War Defense, it was probably came down to some issues, and rightfully so. They identified that Agatha's passive was granting barrier beyond what was supposed to be happening. Now, this is 7 months since her release. She was released back in April. She is not currently farmable, widely available for players to access. Now, Krakens have invested large amounts of resources from G17 to Red Stars because of her power level, which was identified by this team's ability to become a nightmare on War Defense. So when the alarms were sounded by the community, and we said there is something wrong with this team, because when they get bonus health, they're unkillable. And this was happening on War Defense. They never addressed it. It wasn't until Spider Weaver shows up as a featured Mystic character, and the adoption rates are probably down for raids, that they looked at this team was too powerful everywhere. What this means is this team will no longer get barrier beyond the first time that they drop below their threshold. This is a significant nerf. Whether or not it was intended, multiple game modes were balanced around them, and when your envoys sounded the alarms that something was wrong with this team, you ignored them. These are the type of things that set the Kraken community on fire, that forced me to say that this team is already dead in the water before the community can adopt them. The likelihood of them being able to do 3.4 raids on auto diminishes greatly without that barrier. That barrier was providing deflect through the Wong's passive, and there were a number of interactions we're going to go through that makes this team significantly less viable once this change happens. And so I'm not buying that it was just the Pestilence saga. I do buy the fact that anybody who goes into that persistent game mode and tries this with their team now, until this is rebalanced, is going to be, yeah, that word. So this is a major problem here in Marvel Strike Force. Typically, they haven't nerfed characters that were introduced at this level with this level of difficulty. And now this is a drastic change that's happening. And so the question is this one of these things that's subject to change? Is it a good thing that this is being changed? This is going to change the war dynamic for a lot of folks here. I know that in the current bracket, since I've dropped down, a lot of people put their Darkhold on defense and hope that it holds in war. Let's talk a little bit more in depth about it. So Agatha's current issue here is how her Salem Survivor works, okay? Now, the problem with this is there's a large checklist when characters drop below 30% health for the first time. Clear Disrupted on that character, flip 2 negative effects into positive effects, apply defense up and stealth to that character, and then barrier that character for 30% of this character's max health. This part was not restricted to the first time only. And this was causing massive headaches with the team, giving them barrier beyond what was to be expected from them. Now, the problem with this also works in synergy with Wong, okay? On turn of this character, have any amount of barrier apply +1 defect up to a maximum of 3, preventing things like critical hits from damaging this team. So this becomes a much bigger deal than just the functionality inside of this Pestilence saga. This is a problem everywhere, and again, is a massive departure from their norm. So what should they do? Well, they should listen to the envoys that are throwing up alarms that this team is on defense and there's something wrong. That they're getting magnified buffs because of the heals. For months, there was a consistent outcry about this team somehow getting away with not being able to manage the mirror match. So they changed the war mechanics so that you had a bit of an offensive bonus, but it was still drastic, and no one noticed. How is a design team balancing all these different characters not able to notice this? And I guess it becomes the fact that they're balancing Crucible and they're balancing multiple teams. And again, at the end of the day, if it works, ship it, right? Doesn't matter if it works perfectly, just if it works at all, right? Ship it. Beyond frustrated with the number of characters that come out with massive bugs. And you're already starting to see this with the later video for today's topic. We're going to go over some of the stuff that Twana and Benny put out with specifically these new teams. We're already seeing the potential for character kits to already have some, well, discrepancies in how they're supposed to work versus how they're described. But then again, we only have the JSON information from there. It already seems like they have some of their previous problems they introduced in the game when they wrote the code. Overall, I expect this to be a significant nerf in raids for those people that were using them in raids. I expect for this to be Agatha. For those of you guys still using her on arena defense, Spider Weaver is going to kick her to the curb hard. And leave her wanting before you were able to get significant amount of stars on her. And this begs the question is this a departure from the norm? Will this become the standard? And realistically, is this what we're going to be expecting from them going forward? I know for one here, I probably wouldn't prioritize a 7 red star pull on her. I probably wouldn't prioritize all those different resources in her if she wasn't bugged. That being said, we have to watch kits very, very carefully, knowing that there are already kits in the game that are potentially not working as intended. Stay tuned for another Spider Weaver reveal and talking about how that kit is already not working as intended and has a massive bug inside that kit when we go into later. Remember, I do things so you don't have to, and until they get the blog right, guys, at least the blog, I'm done spending in Marvel Strike Force. I just want one blog to come out with the right information. Just once. See you soon.